Okay, grade 12. So at this point, we can now head into sequences and series part 2 revision. Now, this will be based on question 3 from your June 2022 question paper. And before we start, just a reminder that number patterns count about approximately 25 marks in a exam, so it's a really nice place to score a few easy marks, especially if you understand the concepts and know the basic characteristics of each sequence and series. Now, question number 3 in your June exam was one of those questions where looks can truly be deceiving. Now, this entire question looks a little bit weird, it feels a little bit odd, but if you go down to it, it's nothing all too weird or strange. So this is why it's important to read questions and to identify important information from questions. So they tell us in this question, the figure below represents a pattern of shaded triangles placed on a white rectangular board. The triangles all have equal bases of 4 units in length, and the height of the first triangle is 1 unit. Each triangle's height thereafter is 1 unit more than the previous one. So if we quickly dissect this information, they essentially tell you the bases for all of these triangles will be 4, no matter how many of them there are. And then the height of the first triangle will be 1, the next one will be 1 unit greater, so then the height would be 2, the next one 3, and the next one 4, and so it continues until you get 1 where the height would just be n. In this case, the height is equal to the position of the triangle in the pattern. And then they also tell us that all of these triangles are just placed on a rectangular board, and from there we can then continue to question 3.1, in which they ask you to determine the area of the triangle. Now again, this is now where you have to remember that to calculate the area of a triangle, we simply just take half of the base and times it with the perpendicular height. Now for the first triangle, like with all the other triangles in this question, the base would just be 4, and then the height in this case would be 1. Therefore, if we punch this into our calculator, we get that the area for this first triangle would just be 2 units squared. The unit squared in this case is important because remember, we're working with area. We need to specify the unit that we are working with. And then that was about it for question 3.1. Now question 3.2 asks you to determine the area of the 26th triangle. So again, we know that the area of any triangle is just half the base times the perpendicular height. And in this case, we already know that the base is 4 and the perpendicular height is where you now have to think a little bit. If you take a look at the height for the first 4 triangles, you can see that the height just corresponds to the position of the triangle. So that means if we have the 26th triangle would just be equal, the height would just be equal to 26. Therefore, the area of the 26th triangle would just be a half times 4 times 26, which would give us 52 units squared. And that was it for that. So that's with 3 marks. Then we got a real interesting question. And in this case, they ask you the triangles are placed on a rectangular board with a length of 104 units, as shown above in the question paper, but now it's down there, and determine the area of the unshaded part of the white rectangular board. That is the area of the part not covered by the shaded triangles. In a sense, how much area is left after we've placed the triangles. Now, to answer this question, we need to take the following into account. If we want to calculate area left, we take the total area that is available and we subtract how much is used. So first thing we're going to have to do is calculate what the area of the rectangle is in total, then calculate the area the triangles are taking up, and then calculate the area, or subtract the two to get the area that is not shaded. Now, first thing I want you to notice, and let's start by taking a look at the area of the rectangle. Okay, now the area of a rectangle is always just length times base. Now in this case, or not length times base, length times height, or breadth, whatever you would like to refer to it. But in this case, the length is already given to us, which is 104. Now our h in this case needs a little bit of deduction work. Now if you take a look at your base, it is or your length, it is 104, and on that length, this is where we fit in our triangles. We know each triangle that we fit in will have a base of 4. So if we take that into consideration, so for the height, we know that 104 divided by 4 will tell me that 26 triangles are on this board, and the longest triangle, or the highest triangle, would be triangle number 6. So that means the height of this rectangle would be 26. So we multiply the length by 26, and then the total area for the rectangle would be 2,704 units squared. So that is the first part. Then for the area of, or area taken by the triangles, that would essentially just be the sum of all the areas of the triangle. Now if we quickly take a look at it, the first triangle had an area of 2. Then the next triangle will have a height of 2, a base of 4, and a half of 4 times 2 would just give me 4. And then the next triangle would have a height of 3, base of 4, and a half of 4 times 3, which just gives me 6. And this forms an arithmetic pattern. Therefore, if we want to calculate this sum of all the 26 these triangles being used, we can just use the sum formula for an arithmetic sequence. And in this case, the n value would be 26. So sum of the first 20, or the sum of 26 triangles, would be equal to 26 divided by 2 times 2 times a. In this case, a is 2 plus 26 minus 1, and d would just be 2. So therefore, if we punch all of that into our calculator, we'll find that the sum of the 26 triangles will be 702 units squared. And now finally, we can calculate the area left, or the area of the unshaded part. And for that, we simply take the 2,704 units squared minus 702, which would give me 2,002 units squared. So as easy as that, that was the question. And again, it's one of those questions where looks could be deceiving, so it's important to read your questions and try to analyze the information that they've given you. Okay. And just on this note, if you work hard, like most of you at this point, you will definitely succeed.